Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel with another video for you guys here today, and it's another Mock Draft Monday. Free agency's now here. Not expecting the Cowboys to do anything whatsoever for the week, so I hope the mock draft holds you guys over. But with that, I understand that last week's mock draft, I wanted to put the Cowboy hat on, think about what they wanted to do, and what you might see. But this go around, bit different. I wanted to do best player available. Might be a bit unorthodox from what other mock drafts you're seeing with the Cowboys, but if you did miss the last one, by all means, click at the card at the top right of the screen so you can check out the last mock draft we did. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this week's Mock Draft Monday.
And here comes the pick.
With the 24th pick, the Dallas Cowboys select
Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver, Texas. Now, at face value, it may seem insane, the idea of taking a receiver as early as pick 24, especially to pretty much every Cowboys fan across the internet. Oh, we have other needs, such as offensive line, such as defensive line, linebacker, etc. And I'm not disputing those needs that the Cowboys have to address, whether that be in free agency or in this draft class. But if I were to put the Cowboy hat on and think about how this front office is looking at this team from reports we're seeing, and how they've been talking about certain players, it's not insane to think that the Cowboys would take a receiver at 24. When you look at how Stephen Jones, Jerry Jones, and the media have been talking about this offensive line, it really shows you how comfortable they are with the players they have on roster. I'm not saying that's particularly a good thing, but listen to how they've been talking. With Tyler Smith and his position flexibility, and then next thing you know, Tyron Smith and the Cowboys reach an impasse in contract negotiations. So there's a strong possibility they'll slide Tyler Smith over to left tackle. They talk about TJ Bass and Brock Hoffman very highly. Those could be your guys at left guard and center respectfully. Or if you do draft an offensive lineman, you can still see Tyler go out to left tackle. Have this guy that you bring in play left guard, and then you have a competition at center. And that offensive lineman doesn't have to be a first rounder. It can be someone later in the draft. But the point still stands is that then you go to other position groups such as linebacker, defensive line, and you can probably get guys later in the draft. It really comes down to who's the best player on your board. And in this case, Adonai Mitchell was the best player on the board at pick 24 that I felt comfortable with taking. When it came to the possibility of taking a linebacker or an edge rusher or even a defensive tackle with this pick, I felt like I could get some of those guys with the next selection that we have in this draft. So that's why I passed and went with Adonai Mitchell here. So let's talk about Mitchell and what he brings to the table. At 6'3", 195 pounds, Adonai Mitchell has the ideal frame that the Cowboys would want in a wide receiver. Alongside with those measurables, Mitchell has shown to be an above-average athlete on film. This is shown in his ability to effectively run routes, get separation from defenders, and be a reliable target for the quarterback. Those are things that are pluses for him as a prospect. A couple other things that I really like is his ability to quickly accelerate off the line of scrimmage and create tons of leverage in his favor against defenders. Now when it comes to how he runs routes, at the top of his routes, he does a great job of selling them with head fakes, arm action, etc. Now this helps him especially on a short to intermediate route running, but he also does a great job of selling double moves to push vertically up the field for big plays. Now the part of Mitchell's game that comes into question and where I start to ding points off of him as a prospect is his ability to consistently win against press man coverage. With Mitchell, he likes to use his speed release to free himself and get vertically upfield, but when you're talking about stronger, more athletic corners, he's inconsistent in his ability to win and get into his route. Now defenders who are sound in their technique can disrupt Mitchell at the line of scrimmage and then get into his body and disrupting the route timing, which is part of his game. And I think that that's something he can definitely work on at the NFL level. But overall, his combination of size, speed, athleticism, all those other things make him a very intriguing prospect. Hence why I wouldn't be upset with the Cowboys taking him at pick 24. You pair him alongside CeeDee Lamb for presumably the next 5 seasons. And the other part of justifying this pick is if you look at how Brandon Cooks is still here for at least one more year, then you have Jalen Tolbert on, in essence, a 2-year remaining deal on his rookie scale contract. You want to make sure that you're set up long-term with 2 guys. And I think this works out. Now, I understand we can talk about the quarterback position and are they going to bring Dak back. And with how they've been talking, they want to bring him back. It's just a matter of getting the deal done. So until otherwise noted, I think that Adonai Mitchell will be the pick here for this particular mock draft for our best player available. So let's go ahead and move on to the next selection.
And here comes the pick.
The Dallas Cowboys select
Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker, Texas A&M. When we're talking about how the Cowboys need to add to this linebacker room, it's not that they need to go get any linebacker. They need to particularly invest in a true middle linebacker, and that's exactly what you're getting with Edgerrin Cooper here from Texas A&M. When we talk about what he's able to do in the run game, which has been a thing that every Cowboys fan is talking about, how can we improve this run defense? He's shown that he can be a violent downhill guy. He always trusts his initial read. He has quick feet to hop from gap to gap, length to sack and shed opposing blockers. He needs to be more consistent in that area, but he has outstanding pursuit angles. He has enough speed to beat the opposing team to the spot they want to get to. Sure tackler in space, which is what we need. And he has the overall measurables to get things done as a true middle linebacker. 6'2", 230, you name it. Then you look at what he can do in coverage, and Cooper is constantly communicating with the guys around him, and you're seeing it how he's scanning the field and having that spatial awareness for the football field. Definitely impressive, to say the least. Then he also is not afraid to spy quarterbacks and running backs and tight ends. I don't think that's going to be a problem at the next level. When we look at some concerns that could exist for Edgerrin Cooper at the next level, the first thing is controlling his speed in the open field. There are times where he can often over-pursue, but I think those are things that you can coach out of him. You look at how he handles more agile running backs or even more agile quarterbacks. Sometimes they can force misses in space, but as I mentioned before, these are things that can be correctable at the NFL level. And at the end of the day, those are really the only real negatives that I have for Edgerrin Cooper. He has very minimal flaws that I can see on film. He seems a very sound guy in his principles of playing the linebacker role. And I think he'll make an immediate impact for any team that's looking for a linebacker, and particularly a middle linebacker. And I think he'd fit well for the Cowboys. I don't really have to say much more because we've talked about how we've needed a linebacker. So here we go. But there's that. So let's go ahead and let's move on to our final pick of this mock draft.
And here comes the pick.
the Dallas Cowboys select
Cooper Beebe, guard, Kansas State. When we talk about how offensive line play is across the NFL, it is down. And for the Dallas Cowboys, I've talked about it on the channel. I've talked about it on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days. They need to do a much better job of getting talent outside of the first round for the offensive line. And they've been able to do so in the Mike McCarthy era. And if you look at who's going to start on this offensive line, going under the assumption that they don't go and get anybody else for the offensive line and they just stick with what they got. You got Tyler Smith and Zach Martin as the only first-round selections that you've made for the overall offensive line. Everybody else, that would be assuming TJ Bass, Brock Hoffman, and Terrence Steele at those positions, those are undrafted dudes. They've done a great job of adding talent outside of the first round. So in this particular case, you're getting a guy that's going to be playing on the left side of your offensive line for the next 4 seasons. Looking at what he did in college and where I think he's going to translate best to in the NFL is left guard. So for the Cowboys, you would take Tyler Smith, move him to left tackle because of that position flexibility. You play Cooper Beebe at left guard, And then you have a competition at center between TJ Bass and Brock Hoffman. With this pick, this helps me feel a lot more comfortable with the offensive line and being able to know that the depth will still be there for the offensive line and we're not just going in with the depth basically not replenished because you're taking your depth and turning it into starters and you have no one behind them. So that's a plus there. But I really want to talk about Cooper Beebe, the prospect, and why taking him in the third round should be a move that the Cowboys contemplate. So throughout his collegiate career, Cooper Beebe has played not only guard, but tackle as well, and at a high level at that. He has measurables that I like, 6'4", 322 pounds, and then you look at what he's done in the run game. He does a great job of creating momentum at the snap and getting engaged with defenders really quickly. Now, once he's engaged, he turns into a mauler. He uses his natural power to drive these defenders off the ball, create those run lanes, and then looking what else he does on film in the run game for you, he's able to pull and get into the second level fairly easily, which is something that the Cowboys, if they want to improve their run game, I think that that's something that has struggled for them, is getting guys into the second level. Now you can argue that because of how Tony Pollard was running the ball and missing holes, that didn't really help him, but I still think that the Cowboys can improve with how they get into the second level nonetheless. Then you look at what he can do in pass protection for you. He's able to anchor himself very well against defenders who quickly go into a bull rush. I've seen that he plays with a very good stance, and he's able to stop defenders from penetrating the interior of the offensive line. Now, the reason why I don't think he's going to translate well at other positions other than left guard is he doesn't really have very good lateral quickness and reactionary athleticism. I think that in the run game, quicker defenders may be able to get past his blocks if they use speed. And maybe really wants to be aggressive with these defenders in front of him. So, you know, if he has an eagerness to get his hands on them, this can cause balance issues and stuff like that. Another thing is when we look at how he does stuff in pass protection, and the thing that I've noticed is that you look at how he gets attacked on the gaps on either side of him. Sometimes he lunges at defenders and quickly loses his technique to properly block these guys coming at him. So those are things that can be coached out of him. However, I think the lateral quickness and reactionary athleticism that I mentioned before, I don't think that's something that's going to change. That's why I would just limit him to left guard and call it a day. But look, I think what you're getting is a solid starter for 4 seasons. I'm not saying the dude's going to turn into an all-pro guy. It's just a solid starter that's going to be able to anchor that side for 4 years, and then you move on. And that's what the Cowboys need. I mean, that's what all teams are looking for, is a guy that can be your guard for 4+ years or whatever offensive line starting position you want to call it, and you call it a day. So in this particular draft, you get, with what I would envision, 3 starters that can play right now for you. And if that's what the Cowboys are looking for, I think that this would be the best for them. So that wraps up this particular mock draft. And here we are. Free agency starts today. As of when this recording comes out, I don't know if the Cowboys have made any moves. So probably not. But with that being said, tell me what you guys think about this mock draft, what you would grade it, what you would do. I'm really curious to hear what you guys want to do with this Cowboys team and where we're at. So put that down in the comments section, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys. Goodbye.